Okay, call this meeting to order. Welcome one, welcome all, and we got a couple really important briefings today. Mr. Dehaney?
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time, you're going to get briefed on an update from the Flood Protection Program. First voice you'll hear will be from Jeff Waller, who is the chairman of our Flood Protection Bond Referendum Oversight Board, followed by the city's program manager, Jacobs Engineering, who will be represented by Alicia Pica.
Welcome, folks.
Good morning. Good afternoon. I'd like to throw that first error out there early to lower expectations. I am Jeff Waller, chairman of the Flood Prevention Bond Referendum Oversight Board. The Flood Prevention Bond Referendum included 7 master projects with 21 projects identified in the 2021 bond referendum, along with 10 support projects and 10 other active projects. The resolution that created this board calls for a report from the board every 3 months. I was last here in March, so I'm here again. Since the last report in March, the board has received staff briefings from Mike Tippin of the Stormwater Engineering Center on an update on the Windsor Woods mega project. We took a field trip to the substantially complete Lake Windsor tide gates, and we saw a demonstration of one of the temporary pumps pumping. Mike Tippin also gave a presentation on the Central Resort Area project, which was the same briefing the City Council received on May 27th. Programs highlights from the Jacobs May 2025 status report. Windsor Woods tide gates are substantially complete. Bow Creek Stormwater Park Phase 1 is still under construction. South Plaza Trail Presidential Boulevard drainage in Windsor Woods is under construction, along with SeaTac drainage improvements and the First Colonial Boulevard, Oceana Boulevard drainage improvements. Also in the report, the West Neck Creek draft preliminary engineering report has been submitted. The Central Resort District preliminary engineering is on track for a final submittal in July. Eastern Shore Drive bundle phases 1B through 1E is at the final design stage, getting ready to advertise for construction. Bow Creek Stormwater Park Section 2 is at 90%. The Lake Bradford Chubb Lake Pump Station and Outfall, the design build contract, notice to proceed was issued and the project is underway. Future activities, the site visits for a return trip to Bow Creek Park, and we're going to wait for a little cooler weather rather than a day like today, and a return visit to the Lake Windsor gates when the sensors are in place, everything is working, and again next year when the construction's scheduled to be underway. So the city has received $66 million in state and federal grants and will submit on another $51 million in the future. We will advise city council members when the topic of our monthly meeting is in your boroughs or in your district, so you can come. And months ago, this city council approved for us to get 2 student interns. They have both graduated from high school now. They came to our meeting last week, last time, and we bid them farewell. So I think we're on track to maybe get 2 more for the upcoming year. That's been a great success. We loved having them, and they seem to like being on our board. So that's a good thing. Our meetings are open to the public. Our board meets on the 2nd Thursday of each month, 2 o'clock in Town Center. Public can come and comment. The board has a website accessible from the Ripple Effect website, and our email address is posted there. We look forward to remaining part of the bond referendum project. With that, Alicia from Jacobs will present.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Welcome.
And good afternoon. You lower this back down to normal people size. I'm happy to give you your quarterly update today. We have some very interesting things to present to you and make you aware of. So first of all, I'm going to have you take a little vision test. Take a look at this diagram. These are the accomplishments the last time I was here. And I want you to watch the 3 blue boxes. They're going to change since the quarter. So if everyone's watching, here we go. Woo! So we have made progress. It may be simple, just little boxes on a screen, but that's a lot of work to get those projects moving forward. As Jeff said, First Colonial is now under construction. And we saw one of the slides had a photo of that. We did NTP, as he said, Lake Bradford. So now that one's ready to go. Now it's going to be seeing a lot of work. And then the Eastern Shore Drives are now all in the final phases of procurement. So a lot of work to go behind the scene there to get those milestones met. And you can see all the other projects are still making progress within the current milestone they're in, and we're still advancing them all. So that's the good news. So what are we going to talk about next month, what you'll hear from Jeff? We're going to hear about how the Poinciana Pump Station will have reached 100% design submittal, as will have the Bow Creek Stormwater Part 2. And then we'll be actively bidding the Eastern Shore Drive bundles. And then the South Plaza Trail and the Windsor Ward Tide Gate should have been completed construction. So those are the milestones we'll meet next quarter. Through May of this year, we've spent $117.8 million on this program. That's about $10 million more since last quarter. And now you can expect, with more of these projects advancing towards the right of the screen, we're going to start spending more each month. So that number is going to start growing faster. So that's the update on the program as a whole. And today I wanted to go back and talk to you about the operations side of the program, because you made it very clear when you passed your referendum for these projects that you wanted to make sure that operations was engaged and going to be ready to take them on when they were ready. So I want to give you a briefing on that today about what we're doing. You may recall I spoke to you about a year ago about what are the types of things that this program is going to bring. What types of new assets are we going to have? We're going to have 11 new pump stations, and they're going to be significantly larger than the stations we have today. I mean, we're holding back Tide now with these new stations that Jeff and the team had visited, the oversight board had visited. So those installations have not been here at the city before. So these are significant, large installations. We're going to be putting in miles of new pipe, including 4 miles that are going to go out to the bay, to the outfall to the bay from pump stations. So a lot of exciting new infrastructure. Just a little refresher there. But with that comes a lot of coordination. You know, we can't do business as usual, and we haven't been. We have been meeting engineering and operations. I've had coordination meetings quarterly for the past couple years, and we're continuing to have them. And that's very important so that we can have better collaboration. So our operations team members are involved in the design. They get to comment directly on the design documents, and we solicit their opinions. So we're discussing things at the beginning of a project, like how are we going to commission this thing, so that the engineers designing it have the operations perspective in mind. We're also looking forward to what are the technologies that we can use. Some of the projects, like the Mega Bundle, will take 5 years to build, and we don't want to rely on 5-year-old technology when it's ready to come online. We want to make sure we're on top of things. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in my presentation here. But we've really identified the resources and the equipment that are needed to operate this flood protection program projects that you've authorized us to advance. And we're formalizing strategic operation plans so that everyone will know how is that project going to operate once it's online. We're not going to figure it out as we go. We're figuring it out as it's being designed and making sure that aligns with our operating partner's vision. So we're very focused on this right now. We're very focused on the technology and the resources and making sure we have the right folks with the right training to operate these facilities. So the 4 things I want to brief you on today are these 4 initiatives. I want to talk about the top 2 are really related to the existing assets, but those types of needs are going to be important to be prepared for the future ones. And the bottom 2 are how we're getting ready for the future assets. So you may recall that $44.8 million of the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, grant went towards stormwater operations. That was split between neighborhood drainage, which received $30.58 million of those funds, and lake dredging. Staff have been working on these for since 2022, and I'm going to give you a program update on each one of these programs here. But we are in total of the $44 million, we've spent 81% of it. And we're required to have it all spent by December 31st of 2026. So we're doing great. We're on schedule and we're doing some really good work. One of the most exciting slides I have for you is this one. It doesn't look exciting, but it really is. If you read the messages, we have spent 98% of the neighborhood drainage improvement ARPA funds, and we've been able to improve drainage for 23 neighborhoods across the city. We've inspected 61 miles of storm sewers using closed circuit television technology, and we've lined 14 miles of those sewers because they had a defect in them. So of the, like I said, we got $30.58 million in ARPA, and we had to spend about $102,000 more in order to cover the full cost of these projects. So as Patrick would like to say, you spent $102,000 and you got $30 million for it. So not too bad of a balance there. And the reason they were a little more costly is some of the neighborhoods needed a little bit more improvements than we initially thought. And we still have 2 neighborhoods under construction now. That last 2% of the ARPA funds are still under construction. But that's pretty impressive. That's a lot of neighborhoods with a lot of miles of sewer that have been inspected and lined. Now, on the lake dredging portion of the ARPA funds, this table here shows you the 4 lakes that we have finished dredging. There are 6 under construction right now that are being dredged, and we have 2 more that are going to start late summer, early fall this year, and they will be finished before December of 2026. So we've spent about 43% of the lake dredging funds. It takes a lot longer to do a lake dredging project than the neighborhood drainage. You can imagine the permits required and the hauling and the dredging and all the maintenance of traffic and the neighborhood coordination. It's very involved to do these types of projects. And we've spent an additional $1.14 million on these lakes, in addition to the $14.3 million from ARPA. And the additional cost was really because the dredging bids came in so much higher, the first 2 packages, than we expected. And that's because there's a really limited contracting capacity for lake dredging of this magnitude. So the supply is much lower than the demand. So the costs are going to be a little bit more, but it's still not an inappropriate balance. You paid an additional $1 million and you got $14 million in funding for that work. But what I want you to know is that so far we have dredged 142,000 cubic yards of materials from these lakes that are under construction, as well as the lakes that have been completed. I was trying to make an equivalency to that because that's hard even for me to kind of put my head around. But it's more than 10,147 dump trucks. I took the average dump truck size since I didn't pool the contractors, what kind of size do they have. So that's more than 10,000 dump trucks of material that have been taken out of these lakes. And what that does, that frees up capacity for stormwater when it's needed. So we're able to use them more effectively. It's also equivalent to a berm. If you could use this material for building a berm, which you cannot, it is not sustainable or structurally stable, but if you could, mathematically, it's equivalent to a 12-mile berm that's 6 foot tall and 3 foot wide. That's a lot of material that have been removed from these lakes, freeing up capacity for stormwater when we're going to need it when it comes. So it's a pretty exciting program, and staff have done a great job of implementing it and continuing to implement it. And we have a very high confidence and no doubt that we're going to have all the work finished before the grant deadline of December of 2026. So that's a shout out moment there. So I want to take you to something that's a little less exciting, but it's just as important, is asset management. Asset management is basically the business of how you run stormwater operations. It involves software tools. It involves looking at risk, condition of your assets, understanding what is the best practices for maintaining those assets. And you've had those conversations with Mr. Cutter before, where you've talked about what is the service of these, how frequently are you going to do lakes, how frequently you're going to clean ditches. You've had all that, and that's all about practices. But we also want to get into data management, and we want to have more intelligent decision-making regarding both the capital and the operating budgets when it comes to these assets. Having a formalized asset management system allows us to do that. We're not just relying upon an age of an asset or a current condition. We're doing a lot of data analytics with it. So I want to talk you through that process today. We're still in process. Now, this is about a 10-step process, and I like to say we're pretty close to number 10 on the pump stations. So we, Arcadis and Kennedy Jinks has been working with the city's public works stormwater operations teams to really develop this from the ground up. They have an inventory of assets now, and that sounds like no big deal, but even defining an asset can be complicated. Do you define a pump station as an asset, or is it the pump and the motor, or is it the pump and the motor and the gearbox? So I mean, what is an asset? So we ended up getting 390 assets for the 10 pump stations that you currently have, which is a pretty good balance, but it also helps you really understand when each piece needs to be replaced and how you can do that effectively. We've also learned about failure modes. You haven't had a lot of failures on the pump stations, but where asset management looks at predictive failures so that you can mitigate that and do whatever work you need to do in advance of a failure. We look at remaining useful life. We look at a life cycle. If a pump has 10 years of a life from the manufacturer, you don't want to wait till year 11 to replace it. Ideally, you would have a spare pump on hand, and you'd be able to insert that whenever it broke. And you want to get the maximum life from it, but you don't want to overextend all of your assets. Otherwise, you are running to failure. So you've set a level of service, obviously, and each of the pump stations I'm going to show you have a operations plan. They have an asset management plan on how we're going to operate that station. And those have been vetted with the operations teams. And one of the things that we really want to accomplish is reducing operational risk. I want you to see the concept, not necessarily focus on some preliminary numbers that are a couple years old. But when we look at asset risk, we want to be in this is a matrix that engineers use, and we look at the consequence of failure. What happens if this asset does break? And we look at the likelihood of failure. Do we really think it would break? Those kind of things. And we put those things against each other into a matrix. You want to be in anything that's not red or orange. If you're in the orange category, that means that asset has a very high likelihood of risk of failure or consequence of failure. And if you're in the red, it's very high. So you want to be in the low to medium to negligible risk categories. And what we can do is identify what are those risks, and we can mitigate them and determine a monetary value that's required to mitigate them. So it could take as much as $16 million spread over several years to mitigate all pump station risks, so that you had nothing in the orange or red, so that everything was a manageable risk. You don't have to go do it all at once, but you can do it in a very methodical process. And that's really what we've been doing, is developing the strategic asset management plans that are ultimately transitioning operations from a reactive to a proactive and predictive maintenance platform. I think that's very exciting, and we definitely want to be there before the new assets, for the majority of them, come online. So this is just a visual representation of what kind of analytics we can get from an asset management system. So the operations teams can know in real time how these things are running, what's running poorly today or what needs attention. So we can have these dashboards created visually. They don't have to rely upon a person driving out someplace, and they don't have to rely upon even a specific sensor. We'll have a real-time feel for how our system's working. And then on the right-hand side is an example of the operations manual. We'll have a ditch operations manual. We'll have an operations manual for every asset type. But the pump stations were the most critical, so we started with them. A lot of great work has been done by the operations team in advancing this asset management program with Arcadis and Kennedy Jinks. Now let's talk about the future assets. I've been working with the engineering operations coordination meetings. I've been facilitating those quarterly. And Kyle Coolbaugh is a recent member of our team, and he helped me come up with a summary for you of what we're talking about. We are currently embarking upon developing a citywide sensor technology program. What that means is we want to know how the city's water looks like, water levels look like, and what should be turned on, when should they be turned on, when can we turn them off. You can't shut these things up and down with just a switch. You got to ramp them up. And sometimes there's multiple pumps, and different sizes of pumps are needed for different conditions. So we have a whole sensors of rainfall monitoring. You can see we're working with USGS. We're using their data. We're using data from the city sensors. We're using data from HRSD. Any sensor you can find out there, we have plugged into it. And we're going to be able to have it signal so that we can have a good idea of how is rain falling across the city. What is that looking like? We even have traffic cams that we're going to be tagged into, so we'll be able to know what intersections are potentially flooding. The goal is to have this information in advance of the rainfall and have an idea of what's going to happen and be ready to mobilize your stormwater system accordingly. And then what we need to do is, in order to mobilize the stormwater system, we have to know what are the levels in the lakes, rivers, canals, creeks, where these stormwater pump stations are located. So we have what's called a supervisory control access and data acquisition system. We call it SCADA, but it's really a fancy term for a bunch of sensors connected electronically together. And that could be through a telemetry system like your cell phone or through other systems we're exploring the most reliable options. So we have level sensors to know we've been putting them in projects, even the Cape Henry Canal, the ditch project that we did before the Phase 1 flood protection program had sensors in it. We've learned a lot of lessons from those, and we're incorporating them into the Phase 1 flood protection projects. But we're also using sensors that are in place from USGS and StormSense. So I hope that you're understanding we're getting a very integrated system. We're capturing information from everybody who's out there using it for whatever purpose, but using it for our data and have operational awareness of the system so that we can control it once we have a future storm, whether it's a nor'easter or a tropical storm or a hurricane. We'll have a lot more system awareness on what needs to operate when to mitigate those impacts to our neighborhoods. And finally, the topic that we've been talking about is maintenance of the landscape materials. Now, the new assets that we're building are building in some new landscape materials that we're currently not maintaining at the Public Works or the Parks Department. The Elizabeth River Shoreline Restoration is putting in a seagrass bank along it, and that is not something that staff currently maintain anywhere in the city. The Bow Creek Stormwater Park will have a bunch of tidal shrub planting areas, as well as tidal marsh plants and freshwater plants. So these are very critical plants to the ecosystems that we're installing, and they need to be established and maintained to preserve the water quality treatment that they're providing. So Back Bay Marsh, Elizabeth River, Bow Creek are examples of these. And then on my final slide, I want to kind of show you, these are what we're currently maintaining today. We're doing lake dredging, as I told you. We're mowing ditches in general, doing some best management practice at stormwater treatment facilities, and minor repairs to structural elements. Currently contracting out algae services, but when these other projects come online, we're going to have more maintenance needs, and those are going to come to you in the form of operating budgets most likely. We're going to need an adaptive wetland vegetation management plan and people who know how to do that. We're going to need people who know how to maintain wetland species and how to maintain this vegetation. And a lot of these types of wetlands that we're building track geese. So we need to have an active geese mitigation strategy and those type of services. We don't want the geese ruining all the wetlands that we spend all this money and time planning. So we have to have a proactive geese mitigation service or strategy. And then we're going to need some aerators on some of these ponds that we're building. So just to give you a heads up, so in summary, we're going to need some more, we don't need it today, but we're going to need some more staffing and services to maintain the landscaping component of the flood protection project. But the operations and the engineering teams are working very well together today to be prepared to operate these assets in the way they're intended in the future. At this time, I'll be happy to take any questions for either myself or Jeff.
Oh, thank you. I wish you had a geese elimination program, not mitigation.
Sorry. I was being gentle.
You know, we love the creatures, but what can I tell you? Okay, let's go with Amelia Worth.
Thank you so much to Jeff and Lisa. What I notice is your excitement about what is happening. Because to cover all of those amount of the pumps and so forth, it was so nice that on Saturday after we had that big rainstorm over the weekend, they're talking about other cities.
Yeah.
Not Virginia Beach. We were in. So that's thanks to all you do earlier, the asset management,
Yeah.
and so forth. So that is very important for people to understand you're using the money for a purpose.
Right.
You said you only have so much left, and you plan to finish on time. Because of the inflationary costs, if you didn't, you can imagine what else it would cost. So thank you both for this wonderful presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Worth.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. Thank you, Mr. Waller, for your continued service as board chair and the speaker for the presentation. If you could just remind us your role here, because when you say we, that's Jacobs Engineering and the city, and what's the role of Jacobs Engineering?
Yeah.
It's your-
When I say we, I consider myself part of your team. But as your program manager, we are responsible for providing that third-party vetting behind the scenes, making sure the project schedules, budgets, risk management, change management is all happening in accordance with what you would expect. We work collaboratively with your staff. We meet with every project manager every month and talk about what's going on. What are the challenges you think you might experience? And then we ask them some questions. What do you think about this? You think this could happen here? And then those questions are things that we elevate to a variance team. So if something's going to be looking like it's changing, whether it's a schedule or a budget, we elevate it to a variance team that consists of Mr. Hanson, Mr. Tippin, Ms. Utterback, and then we talk about that. So we bring it to their attention. And then anything that needs to be more of a stronger action, we bring to our governance board, which is chaired by Mr. Duhaney. And we give a monthly presentation to the governance board about how are the projects moving forward, what are the challenges that we're finding, and we also try to highlight one of the projects each month to give a deeper dive into what's currently going on. So our team is kind of like your third-party eyes. We're like your auditor, so to speak, your engineering auditor. We aren't doing finance work. We're doing auditing work only. I'll make sure you recognize that. And we're also publishing a monthly report that goes to the oversight board and is published on their website. That is a public report that talks about each of the 7 master projects. What is their current status? It talks about, has the dates in there when each project will be at every milestone: design, bidding, construction, permitting. So that's something we update every month. And we come here every quarter and we talk to you.
Okay, Cash and Stacy, and then Barbara.
Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate that. Particularly, I was interested in HRSD. When I see that, and most of my residents see that, they think of a bill, right? And so I'm grateful to see that you're working in collaboration with them, and so that as a third-party perspective, you can see and monitor in a more effective way. And maybe I would like to follow up with you on that monitoring system, which HRSD, which I think it'll be good for the public to know a little bit more. I don't know how we do that, but I would love to have, I'm sure HRSD is doing a great job, but to have a little oversight, to understand a little bit how they work in tangent with your department would be of interest to me.
Now, it is going to take us about 6 months to get that sensor technology program fully vetted and documented, just so you know we're in the infancy stage. But, I mean, we can definitely give you some idea of how we're currently working with them and what information we're looking forward to exchanging.
Thank you.
Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. And just as a reassurance, can you give even more reassurance to the folks along Shore Drive that the stormwater project and the road project that are concurring at the same time are being actively coordinated?
They are being actively coordinated and managed closely together.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Barbara.
We're in hurricane season, and I think we've been mighty lucky for a number of years, and we're overdue. And we always wonder when our luck's going to run out and we're going to be faced with another Matthew or something. Do you all have the capability, with all the modeling that you have been able to do with others, to say if we were to have another Matthew, what would be the result now? Can you show improvements from what we have done so that we can say certain things that occurred in Matthew we have taken care of?
Mr. Bodner, CJ Bodner, was in charge of all your hydraulic modeling, and he has had every one of the basins updated. The basin plans have been updated, as well as the models. We've only seen a couple of them ourselves, so I can tell you specific areas where we could provide you that feedback. But we can definitely go back and look into it and talk to staff about where we could give you those more engineering type assessments and where we believe we are today versus where we were. But we do have a much better model than you had before that can definitely predict better how the water's going to flow once it hits the land than we knew before.
Prediction is one thing, but actuality is something else. So when we get that storm, I think, well, we can only hope that we have made the right kinds of things that we will have a better result.
And I'll just caution you a little bit that all the investments that you're making in phase one will not address every potential impact from a storm like Matthew. It's going to address several of them and make things a lot better across many corridors throughout the city, but we are not addressing every potential impact that could happen. But we will be coming to you in the future with continued flood protection projects that are from those basin studies. But this phase one is just that. It's the first initial investment in the city to make a strategic investment. We're also working with the Corps, we as the city, through the Coastal Storm Risk Mitigation Program, the CSRM. That's also going to provide a lot of the projects that were like in your sea level wise was a great investment that you did that most cities haven't done. If you haven't read that report, I encourage you to read the sea level wise report on the city's website. It really talks a lot about some of those situations that you're talking about.
Of course, I have read that, and particularly that additional part that we did that particularly looked at Back Bay. And of course, I'm extremely concerned because we're not able to do the marsh restoration program. Because are we making any kinds of progress at all toward the permit, or are we still stuck until we get some change possibly from the General Assembly? Because that's a real worry when we look at something like this that we did have as a part of our referendum that we've not been able to move forward with.
Yeah.
And I guess there are really two of them because we can't move forward with the New Bridge Sandbridge project because that's stuck until we do the environmental assessment with NEMO 7B. So we've got two of our projects that from permitting aspects, we can't do it. Actually, the 4 projects for the southern watersheds all have issues. So I'm kind of a little nervous to say the least.
Okay, anybody else? Yeah, I'll tell you, that was one impressive report. And I'll tell you, I'm so excited about the progress. You know, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first steps. And, you know, we're in this for the long haul. This is not a short-term solution whatsoever. Right. But you know what really impressed me? That when we see, you covered the entire city, all over the place, every district was represented. We'll get you caught up, Barbara. We got to worry about the feds, but we'll get there.
That's 46% of the city that in my district.
But when you think about the progress that we have made all over the place, and you know, let me ask. You know, our bond referendum was $567 million. What are the actual costs these days? Recently, is $1.3 billion. Is there any upgrade on that, Mr. Dehaney? Are we still at 1.3 billion, or is it's going up at all?
It's going up every day, Mayor, but right now I think we're still about 1.3, 1.2. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
But considering the cost of materials and everything the cost of business has gone up 99%. You're doing a remarkable job. So I think you should be congratulated. The entire team. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, we got an exciting one coming.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, at the request of several members of council, we're going to be joined by Jimmy Wood, who's going to give City Council an overview of the city's Virginia 250 committee update. So basically, this is an update on the status of our work celebrating the 250th anniversary of our Commonwealth.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor Dyer and members of council. As Mr. Dehaney said, I'm Jimmy Wood, and I have the privilege of serving as the chair of the Virginia Beach VA 250 committee. Thank you to the council members that requested that I come to speak today. I like getting called into the principal's office every once in a while. But I'll start off in advance by apologizing to you all. I am an attorney. I'm used to getting paid by the minute, so I can be a little verbose in my remarks. So if I go a little too long, feel free to cut me off. I'm also used to the Socratic method, so if you have questions in my presentation, feel free to raise your hand and ask me a question during the presentation. Right now, we are just 1 year away from one of the most important commemorations in our nation's history, the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution and the birth of the United States. And as we look toward 2026, Virginia Beach has a very powerful story to tell. Our city played a very strategic and symbolic role in the path to independence. And I think a lot of our citizens don't realize the role that we played. From the Battle of the Capes off of our coast, which frankly it set the stage for victory at Yorktown, to the skirmish at Kemp's Landing right here on our soil, where the first Patriot casualties in Virginia occurred, it was also here that Governor Lord Dunmore issued his famous proclamation offering freedom to enslaved persons willing to fight for the crown, a moment that shaped both the course of the war and the American conversation about freedom. And of course, we are a city that continues to live and breathe service, home to generations of military families. Virginia Beach truly is a modern guardian of the ideals that began in 1776. That's what makes this commemoration so vital, and it's so relevant to us and all of our citizens. So let me step back and share where it all began. In 2020, the General Assembly created the Virginia American Revolution 250 Commission, or VA 250 for short, to lead the Commonwealth's commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, the Revolutionary War, and the founding of our nation. The commission recognized that the best way, though, to tell the story was really to go to the localities and asked every city and county across the Commonwealth to form a local committee, not to replicate what was happening at the state level, but to make sure that the commemoration had a meaningful impact in the localities and counties and in each community. In that spirit, the City Council established the Virginia Beach VA 250 Committee in July of 2023 and appointed our members in October. Since then, we've been working very hard to understand our history, coordinate with the state and other partners, and prepare to elevate the voices and stories in Virginia Beach. Several of our committee members, along with our city staff liaison, have attended statewide VA 250 conferences in 2023, 2024, and earlier this year. These gatherings have helped to connect us with other communities, learn from the emerging best practices, and ensure that Virginia Beach is not only participating, but leading in this moment. So what exactly is the Virginia Beach VA 250 Committee? Our mission is to help the city commemorate the local events and achievements tied to the revolution. But it's also important to note that it's to help tell the broader story of how the ideas of 1776, liberty, self-governance, and equality, have shaped the community we are today. Indeed, we also acknowledge that liberty and freedom looked very different in 1776 than it does today. And that's important to note. This spans history. This does not end on July 4th, 1776. It's about the ideals of 1776 that helped lead us to where we are today. We're a volunteer committee of 16 members appointed by you, Council, to serve through July 4th, 2026. We're supported by our staff liaison from the Planning Department, Mark Reed, and our council liaisons, Councilmember Dr. Ross Hammond and Councilmember Remick. Importantly, and I want to emphasize this, we are not an event hosting or producing organization. We don't have the staff or funding to organize large-scale city events. Our role is more strategic. We connect the dots, amplify community-led initiatives, and help ensure that the spirit of 1776 is felt throughout the city, even if we're not the ones directly running the show. But beyond the logistics, the committee's focused on a deeper mission. The American Revolution, again, was not just a military conflict. It was a revolution of ideas about liberty, justice, and self-governance. And this commemoration, it's not just for the history buffs or descendants of patriots. VA 250 is for everyone, whether your family has lived here for generations or just arrived last year, whether your ancestors were enslaved, indigenous, immigrants, or veterans. The ideals that gave birth to America belong to all of us. The anniversary is a chance to reflect on where we've been, who we are, and where we want to go. So let's turn now to how we've been supporting local initiatives in this past fiscal year. While we don't host major events again, we support and help amplify the work of organizations that are already doing meaningful programming tied either to the Virginia 250 mission or to the ideals that shaped independence. This past September, we supported the Sons of the American Revolution's commemoration of the Battle of the Virginia Capes, which for those of you that don't know, it was a critical naval engagement that took place just off our coast and helped secure victory at Yorktown. It's one of the most important revolutionary moments tied directly to Virginia Beach. In February, we also helped dedicate a highway marker honoring Willis Augustus Hodges, who was truly a remarkable figure in our local history and in the national story. Hodges was born free, became a prominent abolitionist and newspaper editor, and later served as the lighthouse keeper at Cape Henry. Importantly, he was the first Black lighthouse keeper, a symbol, of course, that you know is on our city's seal. He also served as one of your colleagues, predecessor on the Board of Supervisors for Princess Anne County, which, as we know, became Virginia Beach. His legacy is one that we were very proud to recognize, and again, represented that he had nothing to do with 1776, but more of the ideals that came from 1776. In February, we supported a historical commemoration of the skirmish at James's Plantation, organized by the SAR and DAR. And we're talking, just talked with Councilmember Henley beforehand, have a very interesting idea to maybe commemorate it and follow up with what happened the day after with another skirmish that took place. In May, we also helped support the Rising Sun Powwow hosted by the Nansman Indian Nation and Virginia Beach Parks and Rec. Supporting that event was important to the mission as well because it helped elevate the indigenous stories that are often underrepresented in traditional revolutionary narratives. Most recently, we supported the Memorial Day 5K run, the Run to Remember, over at the Pungo Airport. I also just want to take this opportunity to highlight that we have and we maintain a growing calendar of VA 250 related events in Virginia Beach. You can find it at va250.org/Virginia-Beach. If you're part of a community group, a museum, a civic league, a church, or any event planning organization that touches on the themes of 1776, we'd love to list your event. This isn't about gatekeeping history. Our group is not trying to gatekeep whose event gets listed. We want to invite everyone that's taking part in telling this story and celebrating this monumentous occasion that we want to have that represented and posted online so others can find your event. Looking ahead, we're proud to support several upcoming events that continue to reflect the spirit of the revolution. In July, we're helping to sponsor the Independence Day 5K that the YMCA by Mount Trashmore is putting on. In August, we'll recognize National Lighthouse Day in conjunction with the folks at the Cape Henry Lighthouse, which also was the first federal public works project in the history of our country. And one of the most high-profile events, I think, that we'll see in 2026, Virginia Musical Theater is putting on a production of 1776. In the early days of our committee, we asked that the VMT board consider 1776 for its 2026 lineup, and we were thrilled when the board voted to include it. The production's now going to take stage at the Sandler Center from February 27th to March 1st, 2026. If you don't know, 1776, it's a Tony Award-winning musical that dramatizes the debates, the personalities, and the ideals behind the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So it's really going to be a phenomenal way to bring history alive in a way that I think our citizens will really, really enjoy. So we think that will be a really good signature event for the city next year. I'd also like to highlight, while I said we don't host events, we have hosted some minor events, if you will. The first, you might recall from last year, July 2nd, 2024, we brought history into the council chambers. We had living history reenactors who presented the Princess Anne County resolutions of 1774. Now, we didn't present the entirety of those resolutions because I think we only had 3 minutes, but it would have taken us about 3 hours if you wanted us to present all of them. But no, that was an important document passed by our citizens asserting Virginia's early resistance to the British. And it was a great way to celebrate the 250th anniversary of that by presenting it to you, Council. On February 3rd this year, we hosted celebrated author Andrew Lawler with a book signing and talk at the Sandler Center's Miller Studio. He had days before released his new book, A Perfect Frenzy, A Royal Governor, His Black Allies, and the Crisis That Spurred the American Revolution, which is a wonderful book that unpacks Lord Dunmore's dramatic campaign in southeastern Virginia, including the formation of the Ethiopian Regiment and the Kemp's Landing conflict. So I've referenced a few times throughout the presentation the skirmish at Kemp's Landing. I just want to, just so you have some background on it, it was not a food fight at the old Kemp's Landing Magnet School. It was a very important Revolutionary War event that took place on November 15th, 1775. It was an early clash between local Patriot militia and British forces under Royal Governor Lord Dunmore, which marked the first time that blood was shed on Virginia soil during the Revolution. Several local militiamen were killed, including John Ackes, who was recognized as one of the first Virginian patriots to die in the conflict. The skirmish occurred at a critical crossroads near what is now Witch Duck Road, Princess Anne Road, Kempsville area, an area of strategic and symbolic importance at the time. In the days leading up to the skirmish, Lord Dunmore issued his now infamous proclamation declaring martial law, and he also, at the time, offered freedom to enslaved people to join the British cause. It was publicly posted in Kemp's Landing around the time of the skirmish, likely the day after the skirmish, and it sparked the formation of the Ethiopian Regiment, which was made up of formerly enslaved black men who joined the British. The regiment was in the early stages of formation before the skirmish and before the proclamation, and they actually took part in the skirmish at Kemp's Landing. So it's a very interesting part of the Virginia Beach story and the beginning of the revolutionary conflict in Virginia. So what does that mean for us? Well, in 2025, to honor the legacy of that moment, our committee has designated the skirmish at Kemp's Landing as our signature event for 2025, commemorating the 250th anniversary of the critical and often overlooked chapter, not just in Virginia Beach history, but in American history. The event will take place on November 15th and 16th, 2025 at City View Park in partnership with the 7th Virginia Regiment of the Continental Line and Virginia Beach Parks and Rec. We're planning a historically rich and community-centered program that will feature an immersive Revolutionary era encampment, live skirmish reenactments, and interpretive exhibits designed to educate and engage residents of all ages. The goal is to make it not only an unforgettable experience, but a meaningful reflection of how our local story connects to the larger struggle for independence. We're also coordinating with the Regional Dunmore Trail Initiative to place the event within a broader historical context, linking Virginia Beach with other key sites of revolutionary activity in southeastern Virginia. From both a planning and funding perspective, this event will be a major undertaking. We've earmarked at least $25,000 of our current $50,000 FY26 budget to support this commemoration. It's without a doubt a priority for us, and we're committed to making sure that it's done right. We'll continue refining the event logistics in the months ahead and look forward to working closely with the city and various organizations to make sure that it is a very successful commemoration and event for our citizens. I'd also like to highlight our coordination with beach events. Bobby Malati and beach events have been truly essential. From the beginning, before Bobby was even on our committee, Bobby shared his time, talent, and network to bring VA 250 to life at the oceanfront. Recently, the beach events has organized to have Patrick Henry at the oceanfront, and we'll have Marquis de Lafayette and at the oceanfront this August 16th of this year. Bobby and the VA Legends Walk Foundation have also been instrumental in advancing Racing the Night, which is an engaging play that tells the true story of Susanna Bowling, who was a 16-year-old girl who completed a midnight ride in 1781 to deliver crucial intelligence to the Continental Army in advance of Yorktown. It's a free event, It's going to run, the play will run from July 24th through August 16th, Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays at 8 and 9 p.m. at the 13th Street stage, the Virginia Legends live stage. And again, free event. It's going to be a wonderful event for citizens and tourists alike. Building on the spirit, we have a few initiatives that we're planning, and we would frankly respectfully request council consider supporting and assisting beach events in funding these events. The first is Virginia Beach VA 250 History Festival. You might recall in 2007, during the Jamestown 400th Anniversary Festival, we held a History Fest in Virginia Beach at the Boardwalk. We are really hopeful that we'll be able to do the same thing again this year. What it would be is it would be local museums, historical groups, reenactors, community organizations, cultural groups, food vendors that would have booths at the oceanfront on the boardwalk. And what we would look to do is have it in April, May timeframe, and really make it an intentional festival for our residents, offering them an opportunity to learn in history, share in culture, and connect. And then the other big initiative that we would request this council consider is supporting an enhanced 4th of July 2026 celebration. At our request, Beach Events has looked at options to expand the city's traditional July 4th oceanfront festivities next year, including an enhanced firework display and possibly engaging the Virginia Symphony for a performance. We think that that would be a very fitting celebration for this once in a lifetime, once in a generation milestone. So I would just add that Beach Events, again, has just been incredibly helpful and generous in all that they've done to help forward the VB 250 events. So as we look ahead, I want to talk to you about the moment we're in and the opportunity that's before us. Undoubtedly, there's energy that's building around the 250. It's coming from every corner of the community. This fiscal year hasn't even begun. We've received over $50,000 in requests for funding for community events that exceeds our entire FY26 budget. And these are not fly-by-the-night or operations. These are well-developed, impactful proposals. And so what I would offer is that with greater funding, we could empower even more people to tell Virginia Beach's story. What we have already that we've got on the agenda is, number one, is the Battle of the Capes September 2025 celebration. We do believe that we're going to have some very special guests that will be attending this. I don't want to share any names at this point, but I think there could be some very interesting guests that would be there for that event. We're also working on a 250 facts public education campaign leading up to the 250th anniversary, July 4th, 1776. We're going to release a fact a day beginning in October of 2025, right up till July 4th, 2026. And then we also would invite council today to endorse and support what we're calling Flags of Freedom. Basically, it's a citywide initiative that would turn Virginia Beach into a living symbol of unity, patriotism, and remembrance as we approach July 4th, 2026. The concept is bold. What we're looking to do is fill our neighborhoods, our public spaces, and our skyline with American flags, not just on the government buildings, but along the oceanfront, along the boardwalk, around town center, in parks, libraries, schools, neighborhoods across our city. We want 2026, when the clock strikes midnight, January 1st, 2026, we want it to be, everyone has an American flag out front. The initiative in our mind would include flag kits available to citizens, neighborhood challenges for the most patriotic block, educational outreach on flag history and etiquette, and then a signature display such as a massive American flag flying from Mount Trashmore, something that's visible, iconic, and unifying. I'm sorry. No, that resonated. All right. There you go.
You got it.
All right. But the flags of freedom it's not just about banners and poles. It's about the identity and connection. It's about building community. And I think it's important. The American flag means something to all of us. Some have carried it into battle. Some have simply just said the pledge every day at school. Some have even kneeled before it. But that's what makes it powerful. It doesn't belong to one person, to one political party, to one generation, or to one narrative. It belongs to all of us, and it is the unifying force that we can have in 2026 to really build a sense of community in Virginia Beach. And I think it's an opportunity that we have to really, really work across the city departments, and across your districts, frankly, to be one. And so we would respectfully request and ask that council and the city manager support the initiative and help us working across the various departments to make the idea a reality. Lastly, in closing, I want to thank each of you for the opportunity to share this update, and more importantly, for the trust that you've placed in our committee to help guide what truly is a once-in-a-generation commemoration. The 250th is not just a moment to look back. It's a chance for us to look ahead, and it's a chance for us to reflect on the freedoms and the ideals that we hold, the stories we tell in the community that we continue to build together. Virginia Beach has a proud past, and with our continued support, we can ensure it has an equally inspiring presence in this historic celebration. So we are very excited about what lies ahead, and we're grateful to be doing this work for the city of Virginia Beach. I am happy at this point to answer any questions, and I would love any ideas or feedback or comments that you all have as well. If there's an event that you're looking for sponsorship or anything like that. But keep in mind, we've got $25,000 left.
Hey, any questions? Cash.
So thank you so much for your presentation. As you know, I like history. Some of you know, and if not now, all of you know. I see Mark Reed in the audience, and so that I saw him on CNN, and that was my beginning of saying I'm at the right place at the right time. And then to connect the dots, you guys are doing an event at City View Park, which is in District 7, right? But that's just amazing. And so that is something that I'm so grateful that you strategically planned it throughout certain districts, not just District 7, but that's truly amazing. And can't wait to be on the megaphone and telling people about that, because I'm a fan of history.
I think it's going to be a very special event, and there's already a lot of planning that the 7th Virginians put into it. And so we're very excited for that to come to fruition.
Good.
Okay, Michael, Amelia, and Josh.
Thanks, Mr. Wood, for your really thoughtful presentation, and to the entire committee for what's obviously a lot of work and consideration has been invested into the efforts of this committee. So thank you for that. I wasn't joking when I said what you were talking about with Mount Trashmore resonated with me, and that's in District 3, in case anyone's keeping score. But Mount Trashmore is widely regarded as kind of the Central Park of Virginia Beach. And I'm thinking about what you said, which is that the American flag is a unifying symbol that by design, and continues to be unifying. And I think in these times, and we're always experiencing challenging times, including obviously the revolution was challenging times. It's nice to have something that we can unify around. And I really like what you were saying about the flag, and I really like Mount Trashmore as the site. It makes me think about when the Gulf War was either underway or just finished. There was a great community effort. I think people either held up signs or they created a human American flag on the site of Mount Trashmore. So there's a long history of the American flag on display there. And I think that could be a great, I think that's a really great location for that type of unifying community effort around the American flag.
Yeah.
So I'm all in for that. And I think that's a really great idea. I'd love to work with you on it.
Great. Amelia and Josh.
Well, on behalf of Worth and myself as council liaisons, I went through looking at who would be a great leader to chair this, and we ended up voting for this young man. And He's doing an outstanding job. He's taking it seriously. We cannot pay you by the hour, but you're here working very hard, and he works along with Mark Reed. Can you just stand up so if someone hasn't seen you, please stand. Let's get him a clap too. So they're taking this work very seriously. I remember going out for the Battle of the Capes, and out there we had some Frenchmen come in, and bonjour, and we had Worth, who knew French and was able to just fit right in there. So this is very exciting. It is very inclusive, as we have the Nashman and all the others right in there, African Americans. And so we're looking forward to even more that you're going to share. So thank you. Let's give him a round of applause, please.
Thank you. I would just note, Councilmember Remick pointed out at our last meeting, as we were looking around the table, all of us there, myself included, are older than the founders, or the majority of the founders at the time of the July 4th, 1776. Thomas Jefferson was the old man in the room at 33. So it's pretty humbling to think about that in perspective of where we are today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jimmy, great to see you. Thank you so much for your leadership on just taking the helm here on this commission and celebrating our history, and also for your longtime service as chair and a member of the Historic Preservation Commission also. I was just curious, you said that you're currently planning some additional activities. Are you looking perhaps for some resources from the city, and what would that, what does that look like, or can you give us something later that would spell out a little bit more about what the needs are?
Yeah, I'm very glad you asked that question. We have had a number of community organizations that have come to us, and again, fiscal year starts in 2 weeks or a week and a half, and we've already had a number of fiscal organizations come to us and request funding for their events that they're putting on and planning to put on, and so. I am happy to get you a specific request, but really, in order to be able to support all of these great events and make sure that they happen, we would love to get a little bit more, if possible, to make sure they get off without a hitch. And there's things like the beach events that, frankly, there's no funding that our committee could get that could help put on the History Festival or an enhanced firework display. That's something that's going to have to come from another revenue stream, another place within the city. And so that's something, though, that we would just humbly request that you all consider and work with beach events and helping us advance.
I'd like to learn what some of the specific needs are.
Yep.
I'm looking at Battle of the Capes, for example. Incredibly important and foundational in terms of what ended up becoming victory. So love to learn more about it.
Yep, happy to get you some info on that.
Okay, anyone else worth?
So just to expand upon the Battle of the Capes, which I say is off the shores of Virginia Beach because it's not in the Chesapeake Bay. I didn't know this story at all. It's an incredible story. Of course, we have the first landing of our country in our city. That is in District 1, but, District 6. That's
I'll take it.
Yeah. Anyhow, but everyone does need to learn about the skirmish at Kemp's Landing. Incredible story there, but also the Battle of the Capes. It happens off of our shores. And so we are going to try to put something together along the boardwalk that celebrates that, because that was a key part of the win at Yorktown.
That was on District 8 and 9.
That's right. So it's the entire city involved.
We've got every aspect, every corner of the city's covered.
I'm trying to remember the name of the book. One of the people who was on our committee for one of the past celebrations wrote a book about that battle, and it's extremely well done because he really went into the history of who the people were and so forth. I'm sure you must be aware of that book.
Yeah, Mark would
I'm trying to
be.
remember the name of it.
Battle of the Capes.
I'll bring it to you, and because that book is fantastic. I would love to see it reprinted. I I think it was one of the celebrations that we had maybe about 20 years ago. I forgot what we were celebrating, but one of the people who was appointed to that committee wrote this book. And there's been a lot of history developed over the years by individuals, because most of our history locally has been done by volunteers. Just pulling it all together is really fascinating. And so that's a lot of what you're doing, I can see.
Yes, ma'am. We'd love to see that.
Okay, Amelia?
Yeah, because when we went to watch that and Worth was with me, I spoke, but they were all dressed in that period, outfits, and the women, it was a very proud time to see them, dressed in their outfits, and the elders who came out. It was very important. We had a few children, we even have a youth group that came out that day. It was something I didn't know about before.
And if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to speak out of school, but I'm fairly certain we're going to have a youth group at the skirmish at Kemp's Landing as well.
And what is important for him bringing this presentation is so when we talk about resources, now you know why. This is needed a little bit more. So thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? If you don't mind, the guy with all the districts. I'm so blessed. Let me just say this. Please understand the significance and magnitude of what we're talking about here. I've been involved for about the last 9 months, with all the planning with some national groups and Commonwealth groups. How many tall ships are they looking to come into the whole area? Quite a few from all over the world. This is not going to be a national thing, my friends. This is going to be an international thing. And we're going to be at the epicenter. These ships are going to go right past First Landing Park. And they're going to be docked all over. I think we got some, if I'm not mistaken, some of the tall ships, docking in Virginia Beach also. And so once again, I don't think we can minimize the magnitude of what's going on here. And, the eyes of the world are going to be on us. And I think we reckon. And Jimmy, wasn't there a French? I think we put a French marker up on Shore Drive because there was a battle.
Well, there's
the French that really helped us out. In the
meeting of the three commanders might be the one that you're recalling, which I guess the Historic Preservation Commission funded a grant for that a number of years ago now, probably 5-6 years ago, maybe more recently than that. But that's on Shore Drive. There's the Battle of the Capes sign that I know we've talked about recently. That's it's an interpretive national park sign that's currently at the Brock Environmental Center that we're hoping to get permission from the Park Service to be able to move that, as Councilmember Remick said, to the ocean front. Right now, we've got two ideas in mind, and they're literally the opposite ends of the ocean front, but that's something that we'd love to have more visibility on that. But yeah, there's a number of things that we have that.
Yeah, but it's exciting. It's spread out throughout the entire city. From the old Princess Anne County and everything. We were kind of the epicenter of what was going on. And if I can make a recommendation, my fellow council members, that we get the liaisons, get some figures to put it together, about how much we may want to, consider. Patrick?
Mr. Mayor, I made a note to coordinate with Mark to get a report put together that we'll share with City Council that identifies the various requests and the requests of the City Council as it relates to funding and support.
Okay, that'd be great. Worth?
And just one other addition, we did talk about involving all of our public schools.
Yes.
Grades K through 12, because every student should be a part of this celebration.
Yep. And number of ideas how to do it. We've got some things in the works. Like Centerville Elementary is right next to City View Park. We've been coordinating the organization putting on the skirmish has been coordinating very infant stages with that elementary school. But we'd like to have that open potentially, even if it's just for that elementary school, to be able to come over and see the reenactors and whatnot. But other ideas we've bandied about, potentially having an essay contest for older kids, coloring books activities for younger kids, scavenger hunts, things like that. So still in works, I would say, at this point.
Okay, anyone else? All right, Jimmy, thank you very much. And I'd like to conclude with something that you touched on and Michael also touched on. We're going to be visible to the entire country about this time next year. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we took the opportunity to have people rediscover America, to take a look at, and just, take a look at our history, where we came from, and rekindle that patriotism and that sense of unity that we have as a country. This could be a tremendous opportunity that, we can really, really play a major part in. Okay, but, thank you and God bless you, buddy. Take
Thank
care.
you all.
Okay, council discussions, comments. Anybody? Stacy?
It's been brought up to me several times, looking at 4th of July weekend, that we have a number of neighborhoods who go through the proper permitting process to have their 4th of July parades. Some of these parades are huge scale, some are, I say huge for that neighborhood, and some are smaller, but so they're being responsible and going through this permitting process, but one of the obstacles they're running into is that the city's requiring 2 traffic enforcement officers for each of these events. And, for most of these neighborhoods, that's cost prohibitive. And we have a great history and a great tradition. I know in my neighborhood on Bay Island, it's just a fantastic turnout. But, if there's some way, I'd like to see the city give some way. There's 2 concerns. One is the actual cost, and 2 would be the availability. As we know, trying to get 2 officers at every single neighborhood on one single day may not be doable. So I'd like to see us, and it was short notice for this year, but something that we can do to relieve that burden and to ensure that these neighborhood parades can, in fact, go on.
I know Kate Story's been asking for a while. But, Hutch, is there any, with the fireworks, are there safety concerns?
Yeah,
Rhetorical question.
yeah, it's a I don't know how to say it best. Out of control problem is probably what's the easiest way to say it. We don't have enough resources or enough folks for every neighborhood and for every problem. And then 99% of them go off just fine, no pun intended, but there's no problems. But then there, every once in a while, and I guess it was about 15 years ago, we did have a fatality fire late at night, house in mulch, and caught the house on fire from fireworks earlier. But yeah, it's an ongoing problem. And then the other is just like what Councilman Cummings was asking is like, how do you allocate the resources? We have the huge event at the oceanfront, and we have the huge event at Mount Trashmore that starts taking a lot of resources. So it becomes a bit of a juggling match. But then the other side of me from the Naval Postgraduate School part is that, but you need your officers sometimes in case something goes wrong. You want them to be available immediately and having them there. And if they're from the precincts, if they're not pulling extra, if they're coming from the precincts, then maybe that's a good thing that they're in that area in case something does go wrong or something goes heinous. So that's a little bit more than you probably asked for, but that's
No, that's exactly,
Okay.
The thing is, there's always the well-intentions, but we got to think about the potential consequences.
Right.
We hope for the best and pray for the best. And
Just one more thing too is when a lot of us were growing up, you were throwing firecrackers and little twirlers and stuff, but now they're actually using mortar rounds at a lot of these neighborhood pop-ups, and so you start shooting off mortar rounds, and that's when things can go horribly wrong. They're just not prepared for the downside of it. The ones that are permitted and done proper, then that's one thing, but the ones that aren't are the problems. And they're everywhere, they're all over the city.
Yeah, Stacy.
I'm not talking about lighting off the fireworks.
No.
I'm talking about just their simple, get up on 4th of July morning and having a neighborhood parade with, the people in the neighborhood participating. And it's just a big community event. And look, I think we've all been there and have walked in them and taken advantage of them. It's just a horrible burden to put on people that are trying to do the right thing by getting it permitted. And we don't even know that we could supply the resources if we did require them to have these 2 traffic enforcement officers. We don't even know that we can supply those resources because there's so many parades, so many neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And you'll have neighborhoods that haven't been through the permitting process, and they'll go off without a hitch. And then the people that are trying to do the right thing are facing this obstacle.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of fireworks or things like that. It's we've all been there and we know what goes on in these neighborhood parades. We've all taken advantage of being part of these neighborhood parades. I just think we need to encourage them and to find a workaround to having to find 2 off-duty law enforcement officers to come and monitor a neighborhood parade for a couple hours on the 4th of July.
Good point, Josh.
Just a quick question on that point. I thought you only needed officers if you're crossing a major street, but if it was completely internal to the neighborhood, you still need public safety officers to.
I gotta get a better sense of it, so I'll look into it and see what we can communicate to the council, let us know about the rules. My general sense was I thought it was something to that effect, but I'm not 100% certain, so I'll touch base with the permits folks and also our public safety staff and get a better understanding of it.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to say too, is that I think most of the time, most of the parades have fire and officers and EMS in the parade. So I don't know if that might check off the box for the I don't know, but I know they're normally in it.
Yeah.
On a different note, I just want to, and these are important, gentlemen, thank you for what you said about policing and community policing. This is for Parks After Dark. Very important. Obviously, it rained this past Saturday, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Parks After Dark again in our prospective locations. So please, if you're watching online, we want the kids to have a smooth transition. And so the city has graciously stepped up with Parks After Dark and provided resources, free food, activities, and we got community police there, and we've got police, and we've got business owners, and we've got leaders in the community. And so just know that the city of Virginia Beach is doing much more than just saying that they're going to do something to protect our youth. We're showing you we are putting our money where our mouth is at. And so that's by Parks After Dark. Please be there or be square.
You got it. Amelia.
Did you hear that from District 7? I would like to share, as you know, this week is the Juneteenth celebrations. And it's gone from where it was one celebration and one mayor was the first to declare it as part of a citywide holiday. And the mayor is here, Mayor D. And now, as you know, a lot of that has gone national. But starting right at the beginning, we have the Virginia Symphony Orchestra who came over, and the brass quintet performed over at our Virginia African American Culture Center land. And we had a nice turnout, and some of the communities were sitting at a distance, but still listening to hear what they were going to do, because all they think is brass and concert is going to be boring. But this went well. They had Duke Ellington songs, they had In Misbehaving, and they used the relevance of African American music and its impact. So they were able to finish it just before the storm. The rest of us who were out there, they had put away all their instruments, gotten into the truck, and then it came down, so the rest of us were wet to the bone. But we're here. So shout out, thank you to the Virginia Symphony Orchestra. Other things that's gone on or coming up for Juneteenth along here. We're working with the Department of Cultural Affairs, VB Gigs, and on Saturday we'll be over at the Virginia Creative District doing something for the Juneteenth, having bands and having other people perform, and a young man who was very helpful, Charles Maximilian, came out. He helped us a lot Saturday, and he would be one of the performers then. And also, the Western Bayside Collective had a meeting just last week, and it was good to see the mayor. You have a mayor's office volunteer of young people. And we had this little 16-year-old, her name was Macy. She took part in collecting the information and even reporting out. So we're very proud to see our young people active, and that was held over at Virginia Wesleyan with Kelly Jackson heading that part. And recently we had at Burton Station, District 4 had the Tranquility at the Lakes for their second for affordable housing, especially we're looking at people who need housing, and this time they're looking at seniors and seniors aging gracefully. So this is the second. It was so nice to see our mayor was there. He spoke, and two of our other members, my colleagues, Councilman Remick and Councilman Palucci, were out there. I think they serve on the VBCDC. So they're out there representing, and even Andy Freeman got to speak. So it was good. And we had one of the older members out there. If you ever go out to the convention center and you look at the huge mural of the three women, one is 92, and she lives out at Tranquility at the Lakes 1, and she was there. So it just shows you with education, with learning, and having different, working together, we can have a good celebration. So all this week, many things are happening across the city. I think the Team Lambs, they're doing something at the Ocean Front as well. So just giving a shout out that we're all working together to make a good holiday. Thank you.
Good stuff. Hutch.
So Sunday, we had a church group, ASWOW is acronym for them, that came out, like 60 or 70 folks, young folks, came out to, it was right in the corner there of District 1, 3, and 4, and they cleaned up what's going to be the VB Trail, where it goes up underneath where the old train went under the interstate. Wonderful young group, and it was good to work with the faith community and help clean things up. They did 47 bags of trash and pulled up a railroad spike that was probably that long that was laying there from the old railroad, and some other stuff, and they hauled it away. And so I think it's good. It built some camaraderie amongst them, and showing everybody, and maybe some of the folks that saw it showed that, you know, our young people take it on the chin sometimes about their grit and determination. But this group, I think, showed that they were willing to get out there and get their hands dirty and do some good work. And so it was good to be a part of it.
Good, Barbara.
You recall, last Tuesday, I reported that the Virginia Beach Development Authority would be putting forth a plan to expand the Innovation Park to a much larger industrial park, and that they would make that plan public at a meeting last Friday morning, which they did, and I have a copy of that for each of you if you'd like to have it. I had asked for a briefing, which I had yesterday afternoon. It's the Development Authority's belief that their mission is to recommend ways that the city can expand its tax base and generate more tax revenue. Well, that area that they are looking at for an industrial park has until now been planned for sports tourism. And I had asked for a plan in last year's budget, or last year at that time, for how we could complete the implementation of that plan, and that I asked for that implementation plan to be presented to us by last October, which it was. So now we have two plans for that area. We have had considerable feedback from the sports tourism plan that we did circulate last October. And I just have to say, somehow or other, that's been renamed to the Parks and Recreation Plan, and that is not what it is. It's just that Parks and Recreation drew the short straw and had to pull it together, I think, and since they made the presentation. But it's our plan, which we have had for 3 decades, to have that area be sports tourism, and a tremendous aspect for our tourist industry. So we have had a fantastic feedback from that plan. I think the stack of papers that I have of letters from various individuals and groups is over 100 pages now, and it's all been very positive. Well, but now we have 2 plans for that same area, and I would like to request that we ask the Resort Advisory Commission to review the Development Authority's plan and make recommendations to us, particularly on how the sports tourism plan can fit in with it. We really need to include recommendations for this area, which is a vast area in the center of our city, in the upcoming comprehensive plan as it circulates for public comment. And so in order to get these 2 plans out there, we need to make a special effort. Because to this point, this particular plan, for it to be a major industrial area, has had no public input. And it's very important that we make certain that it gets public exposure and the opportunity for public comment. So I would ask that we, ask the Resort Advisory Commission. They did attend the meeting yesterday, and see if they can make some recommendations to how we can hold these together. And I have copies of this for you all. I don't want to burden you with more paper unless you want it. But this is something we've not seen before.
Yeah, sometimes we're nothing but paper, so.
Well, this is a very different aspect for that area.
Well, my hopes is the potential that we may be able to form a compromise at this and blend the plans. And I think that's, should be.
Would it be all right to ask the RAC to look at it? Sure. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Patrick?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, just to clarify, the last time we briefed City Council on the innovation part, the direction from council was for us to work the department's Parks and Recreation, Planning and Economic Development, and to bring back options or a plan on how the active recreation, passive recreation, sports tourism, the ITA can be reconciled with a concept of increasing or expanding innovation park. Staff is still working on that, and we're shooting to brief you on that prior to you all going on retreat. So we're shooting for either the 1st or the 8th of July to bring that presentation back to council. Just to clarify, that's what the last direction you all gave us, and we're working towards bringing something for you all to review.
Okay, great. Josh, and then Michael.
I remember we did see this, and I'm just wondering if it's possible, like the parks plan, the sports tourism plan had at least some semblance of what pie in the sky some of that investment might cost, and this is a great start, but it kind of lacks that depth, and I wouldn't expect it to have it at such an early stage. But if we're going to give it to like somebody like a RAC to look at, I think I would want to have the benefit of that exercise, and then also maybe some dollars and cents that we
Well, I
can.
mean, this is something that we have not anticipated at all. It's an entirely different.
Sorry, I thought I'd been recognized to
And
speak
so,
next.
I think and it definitely needs to have some public exposure. And I will be presenting it at my forum, because there has been no public input at all. And that's just not the way we do.
That's not true.
Okay,
Not
Michael.
on this plan. Well, it's not been in my district, and this is my district.
Okay, Michael.
Sorry, Mayor, with respect, I think it's important to maintain the integrity of how people have been recognized. I respect your position as chair of the meeting, but I do think it's important because it often seems like certain council members cut in front of me, it's frustrating, and it actually derails my train of thought. I'll pass for now, thank you.
Yeah.
Part of what council requested was also a general sense of the cost for utilities and road expansions associated with any expansion of the innovation park. So we will bring a rough order cost of what that would look like for council to review as well.
Okay.
Just wanted to,
You need to follow up.
if you want to follow up, it was something different.
Could you put that in writing for me? Because I just didn't follow what you were saying. I'm sorry, I just missed it. Okay.
I just wanted to give a shout out to one group that are always behind the scene, Parks and Recreation, with Kirschman here, Mark Parkman, Steve. They always come out and help in many ways besides beach events. And I just was going to give a shout out. There's so many things going on in the city. You call them and they're always, how can we help? What can we do? That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. All right, anybody else? I'll tell you what, we had another significant event at Innovation Park with acoustical medical, sheet metal the other day. Governor came down. This shows the heart and soul of Virginia Beach. This company started in 1994 with 8 people. It started in a junkyard. And with this new expansion, they have 850 employees. And once again, they thought to expand their business right on their campus. And they actually got training programs where they hire people and they'll train them to become welders and work like that. And it's a remarkable spirit, but I think it's kind of a testimony that, you know, these folks want to expand here. Steel wants to do another expansion. Amazon wants to come here with a significant project. Okay. And, you know, once again, it was very well attended. It was excitement, but, you know, Virginia Beach is on the move, and it's a place where people want to come and do business and live and play.
If I could just talk a little bit more, that is their 4th expansion in our city.
Mm-hmm.
You said, I mean, they did start in a junkyard, but they have another property, but this is the 4th, 3rd in the Innovation Park. And it's an incredible story, lots of jobs. Those are advanced manufacturing jobs that start at $40 or more per hour. So it's not just distribution, it's advanced manufacturing for data centers and the military as well.
And the craftsmanship that they're doing. Watch them, these people are really top of their game quickly, what they're making and manufacturing. It's impressive.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else? Cash.
Just, this is very important, and we've had several food pantries, Mobile 757 discontinued, funding cut from that. I just want people to know that, you know, us as city council members, we are thinking proactively how to keep our districts afloat. Reset Inc. Falls within my district. And so I want people to know that it's on the outside, right of Military Highway. But the point is, we can share it. That's right. The point is, I want the community to know that we're thinking secondary plans. So if 757 mobile distribution has shut down, then just know that this city council is proactive and contact us. And so we can still connect you with food services that are up and running. I know this is about making sure that the working class, when they pay their bills, they don't have food or diapers. Then us as city council, we've got connection points for you. So you're not alone.
Okay, great. Okay, anybody else? Okay, at this point, if we can kindly do the agenda review.
We have to do the agenda. Looking at the public hearing ordinances. We have quite a few of these ordinances. Are there any that anyone needs to pull? 16.
I don't see any.
They all go on the consent agenda.
Let's go to planning.
All right, for planning, for District 10, HWG Virginia Beach LLC and 1808 Salem LLC, modify the conditions of a conditional change of zoning to convert the former Rite Aid building to a child care center and tenant space at 1808 Salem Road, and that's District 10.
Mr. Mayor, I spoke to Mrs. Rouse about this yesterday, and Mrs. Rouse said she had no problems with this one.
With it and doesn't mind if we go ahead and deal with it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we will have that on the consent agenda for approval. Second, City of Virginia Beach for a modification of conditions to a conditional use permit regarding a bar pit fill at 560 Oceana Boulevard, and I do believe we have some.
We have several
speakers,
speakers,
so
yes.
we will be pulling that one.
Can I ask a question? Will staff be ready to maybe kick it off and present? LJ or Tony?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Maybe start, and then we'll have speakers after that.
Okay, so staff will make a presentation first.
So, Mr. Mayor, so council wants staff to give that
Brief.
the same.
Not a whole brief.
Saying be brief.
A brief.
Brief, start it off, and
We can't have two presentations up at the same time. So we already have the planning presentation loaded and ready to go in there. We can't, I don't think we can put a separate brief up there.
I think we can talk about it over the dais.
Okay.
Staff will certainly be there to answer questions.
Oh, that's the question.
So after the speakers,
Yeah.
if council wants to ask staff questions, staff will be there to respond
Okay.
to that.
That'd be the best.
Okay, thank you.
So there will be questions from the council to staff after the speakers. All right, on item 3, FWM Residential Rental Properties and City of Virginia Beach for a conditional change of zoning from R5S Residential Single Family to conditional RT3 Resort Tourist District regarding a commercial marina at 2 parcels south of 310 and 312 Winston-Salem Avenue, and this is in District 5, which is Ms. Wilson's district.
I spoke.
Direction.
When we had I apologize. Last week when we had the agenda setting meeting, we went over this with the vice mayor. The vice mayor indicated no issue. Mayor.
Correct.
Wants us to move forward?
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so this will be on the consent agenda.
Number 4 is also.
And that would include also item 4, which that involves the same property. Item 5, 2501 Holland Road for a conditional change of zoning from Ag 1 and Ag 2 agricultural to a conditional R10 residential district to develop a 35 lot subdivision with 33 single-family lots, an open space lot, and a stormwater management lot at 2501 Holland Road. This is District 2. I have heard no opposition. I do believe there might have been some speakers, but if we don't have any, we can go forward on the consent agenda, but if we have speakers, we'll need to pull it. Otherwise, we can have it on consent. 6, BT Associates for a conditional change of zoning from O2 office to conditional B2 business district and conditional use permit regarding a bulk storage yard at 120 South Lynn Haven Road in District 3.
You go check with him. Michael. There wasn't.
Is there a concern for, okay, so we can put this on consent. 7, Virginia Beach Beacon Baptist Church to modify conditions to a conditional use permit regarding religious use at 2301 Newstead Drive, District 5, which is also Ms. Wilson's district. I think she said there were let's see, the applicants requested deferral to July 8th. So this will be on the consent for deferral to July 8th. Okay. And this also is the second, item 8 will also be deferred to July 8th at the request of the applicant.
Yes, ma'am.
9, Kenneth Leach and Chandler Dennis for a conditional use permit regarding an open air market at 661 Sandbridge Road, District 2. This can be on consent. And 10, Colin and Skylar Miller for a conditional use permit regarding a short-term rental at 1720 Baltic, District 6.
Consent, please.
That can be consent. So we're on consent
Except
for
for
all
one item.
except pulling item 2.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hanley.
Okay.
Okay, at this point, the chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions from open meeting allowed by section 2.23711A Code of Virginia as amended for the following purposes. Legal matters, consultant with legal counsel employed or retained by the public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal service by such counsel pursuant to section 2.23711A8, and that would be Atlantic Park. Legal matters, consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiation or litigating posture of the public body pursuant to section 2.23711A7 and publicly held property, discussion or consideration of acquisition of real property for public purpose or the disposition of public held property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to section 2.23711A3, and that's District 10. And public contract, discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds and discussion of terms and scope of such contract where the discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiation strategy of the public body pursuant to section 2.23711A29 Field House. And then finally, personnel matters, discussions, considerations, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body pursuant to section 2.23711A1, and that's appointments of boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, and appointees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Lucci has just stepped out, so we'll count him absent for this. Councilmember Cummings?
Aye.
Councilmember Henley?
Aye.
Councilmember Hutchinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Remick?
Aye.
Councilmember Ross Haven?
Aye.
Councilmember Rouse is absent. Councilmember Shulman? He stepped out as well. Mayor Dyer?
Aye.
7-0.
Okay, we are adjourned into recess.